What's up, y'all? All right, so today's video is gonna be about talking about 3 things that always should be highlighted throughout your experience in life. And those 3 things are your mind, your heart, and the idea of the word belief or believe. And what I want to highlight in that is, as a spirit, as a person that accepts something in their mind and doesn't accept something in their mind, understand you have the ultimate power of accepting or not. And it gets a little bit more complicated and in depth when you start to talk about the subconscious mind, right? But even in the Bible, if I pull up some scriptures, you can for yourself go to like the book of like Proverbs, and you will see throughout Proverbs you will see a lot of scripture or information based on the idea of your heart. So all right, so an example is like a glad heart, and this is Proverbs 15 verse 13. A glad heart makes a cheerful face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is crushed. That's such a powerful scripture. Just the context of it, basically saying how much you should guard your heart. And based on where your heart is at, which is funny because I'm gonna break this down a little bit, based where your heart is at is going to reflect on your facial features. And talking to people about the idea of beauty and attraction, and getting someone to open up to you, or you open up to somebody, it really depends on where your heart's at. And a lot of people don't understand that, because that concept is in depth. It's almost like spoken in metaphors. What do you mean your heart? Because like if we're talking about it in such a physical and logical manner, it's like a glad heart. How can a heart be glad? And when you get into philosophical or forms of spiritual talk, you got to understand everything is a hint to something invisible. And what scriptures show you is that there is a physical heart, obviously, which is what this body is operating from and pumping blood through and giving you the everything you need throughout your whole system. And then it's talking about another heart being glad, or another heart being in sorrow, or another heart being down. I'm gonna change my camera. So what is let my camera focus. What is the scripture really saying when it's talking about a glad heart, right? What it's really saying, because that's just one scripture, but like when you look through all scripture, or any of the messages that's given to us, it's always like, guard your heart. Out of your heart flows rivers of water, of life. So when you think about stuff like this, it's like, okay, someone can have let's say an example, a bad mind, a bad mindset. They could be in a negative headspace, or in a bad space in their head, right? But what's so interesting about that is that when someone is in a negative headspace, that's mental. That's really mental. That means like, hey, like, just shift yourself, move your mind, and those thoughts would switch with it too. And you will know if something has entered someone's heart depending on how much they entertain their headspace, or in other words, what's in their head or in their mind, or the thoughts. So one key thing, you know, shout out to Dr. Miles Monroe. You know, I study him pretty often, and you know, he passed away a while ago, but some things he highlights is that the subconscious mind is so in depth. The heart, where the heart's located, also in the mental realm, in the subconscious, it's also, the heart also has its mind of its own. And I know that sounds like kind of off, or kind of like, okay, woo woo, but if you think about it, the mind gives thoughts all the time, suggestions. Someone can give you a verbal suggestion in the physical world, and you can play around with these thoughts all day. But what's so interesting about the heart is that the heart is already fixated on a lot of ideas, a lot of morals, a lot of principles, and it's hard to either remove or add certain morals or principles into the heart. There's a difference. There's a difference between the heart shifting and the mind looking at thoughts, values, opinions, and morals. So another example of this would be like, if I was like, hey, you know, it's a good idea to give to the homeless. Anyone can play around with that thought. But really, the person that's really going to use that idea is the person that has accepted it in their heart. Because I could give that suggestion to anybody, but that doesn't mean during the day or the next day or the next week someone's going to start giving to the poor all of a sudden. And then on top of that, they're not even gonna, even if they do, they're not gonna give it from a righteous place, which is quote unquote what you hear all the time, giving it from the heart. What does giving it from the heart mean? So you see how all these things are connected. The heart's connected with the mind, the mind's connected with the heart. And the only way things get into the heart is through the mind. So that's actually the gateway to the heart. The gateway to the heart is through the mind. Now, how many people are conditioning themselves to guard their mind? Not many. Because in order to guard your mind, you got to be aware most of the time while the mind is receiving information. Well, how does one guard their mind? Through your senses. That's the only way things can get received into the mind, is through your senses. Your eyes, your vision, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching. So if all of these are your senses, and this is what registers to your mind, it sits around in your mind almost like it's in a waiting room. It's kind of like a door, like a open space where it's kind of like, okay, what are we going to do with these the information we just received? What are we going to do with this thing that we just experienced? And then a couple things can happen. You can either brush it off like it's nothing, you can accept something new, or reject something new. You can start to accept something that's been repeating in front of you a bunch of times and switch your heart about it. Like, there's a difference between switching your mind and switching your heart. I think your mind gets switched once it reaches a certain level to your heart, and then it switches the mind. Because I can switch my thought easily, but that doesn't mean I believe anything. So the gateway to the heart is the mind. But what's the gateway to the mind? Your senses. And someone brought up a good thing, which is another level of it. They're like, hey, what if I'm not receiving anything from the physical realm, but I'm hearing a thought? You see, now we're tapping into something different. Now we're tapping into what we may perceive as there's other senses besides the physical. So it's almost replicated inside yourself. Because you can have someone say something out loud to you in the physical world, but then at the end of the day, say no one's around you, and you start playing with or you start hearing thoughts in the mental world, in your mind. Now where did that come from? Because you can still listen. You're listening to something, you're seeing something. You know, when people dream and then they like react to their dream, like say they're falling off a building, or someone's chasing them in the dream, or something's happening in the dream, their body starts to react to it like someone did it physically. So it's like we have all these physical senses inside our mind, and the mirror is also doing it in the real world, in this physical world. There's also the senses, because like touch, you know, sight, hearing, all of that. Now, I haven't touched on the word believe, but like, let's touch on it. What's the idea behind the word believe? Well, believing, I believe, when someone says I believe, when someone says I believe, I think, I feel, my belief system is, what they're really saying is what I agree to in my heart is X, Y, and Z. Now, how did someone get to the point where they agreed or they start to believe X, Y, and Z? Well, it had to start in the mind first. It had to be in the conscious mind first, getting played with, and then enter the subconscious somehow, and then they had to sit with it and then start to understand that, okay, this is what I'm agreeing to enter this system, and this is how I'm gonna operate based on this topic, and this is what I'm gonna view it as. And that's where you get someone go, I believe X, Y, and Z. I believe life should be like this. I believe people should do this. I believe this. And that's how it enters. In a lot of ways to use this to your advantage is, a lot of people believe they're not worthy enough. But if you sit around and you ask a person and you really break it down and you go in depth on why this person believes they're not worth it, they had a lot of physical experiences, aka the senses of a human body has experienced information over time that entered the mind, that shifted their mindset, and then they started to agree that this is the way of life, or this is the way of being. Now, this could be a very, very bad thing for a human being. Why can it be a very bad thing for a human being? Because you'll live a life, say you got someone that's very positive and optimistic and someone that's very negative. You can have these two persons experience the same thing, and depending on their belief system, both of them are going to operate differently after on what they just experienced. And that's so potent, because even though they may have both experienced the same thing, there's about to be a different outcome to their reality after that. And this is where belief systems become so potent. And what I've started to notice is, like, when people have broken hearts, it connects to spirit. If your heart is broken, you will have a broken spirit. Now, how do you undo a broken spirit? Like, what if you're watching this and you're like, yo, like, I'm living my life as a broken person, aka you believe so much of something negative that your heart is actually broken in a spiritual realm. or in the mind somewhere, and that's connected to your spirit. And now you're walking around as a broken spirit. Well, what can that person do? That person has to start to reprogram themselves on purpose. How do you reprogram yourself on purpose? The way that you let your mind, it's eating, it's spiritual food. It's what are you eating on a daily basis? What are you doing to the body on a daily basis? Like if you ate crappy food every day, didn't work out, what do you think your body's gonna start to show after a period of time? The effects of what you're eating. That is also happening in such a minuscule level, in such an invisible level to the mind. A lot of people have not fed their mind in a while. How do you know you're feeding your mind? Well, are you purposely reading something that you want to read, that motivates you, that puts you in a good state of mind, that makes you understand yourself better? Are you watching things that help you mentally? Are you listening to things that help you mentally? Is your circle, is the men around you giving you verbal indications of positive affirmations to you on a daily? Are your friends programming you to be stronger, better, sharper? You see, these are little minuscule things that people don't notice because they have already been programmed to accept whatever they don't even know has been fed to their subconscious mind. And once you can really see what I'm talking about and become aware of it, it's hard to catch in the beginning, but after a while you'll start to see that, yo, like my mind is crappy. And you gotta reverse engineer. You gotta take all that away. Like all it is believing a thought. And I know so many people, like even like the motivation and just like the how easy someone is acceptable to the things they think. It's sad because it's like, hey, do you know that thought that you're just meaninglessly accepting actually is so deadly and so potent to your destiny, to your future, to who you are as a human being? And this all wraps around into relationships. This all wraps around to how that woman's gonna see you. This all wraps around to how you're going to do one thing. And remember, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So notice how you do one thing, and you will notice where your mind is at, where your heart is at. The way someone wakes up in the morning will tell you where the heart is at. Like I read in the beginning in Proverbs, a glad heart makes a cheerful face. If I wake up in the morning and I'm sad and I hate life and I'm in fear and I'm in like just clueless, negative and just worried, and I need to check my heart. And I need to figure out why that's there. And I need to start healing from that. And once you start healing, you need to start to apply new shit to the heart, new shit to the mind. Remember, the gateway is the mind. So I need to start to program my mind to positive, powerful stuff all the time, to the point where I unconsciously start to gravitate to power for some reason, even though the road ahead might be so negative and I don't see any future. And like my boy was saying, he was comparing emotions to the weather. If I see everything cloudy and it's a big mess, there's rain everywhere, it's the biggest thunderstorm, and I've programmed my mind so much that I don't even know why I'm subconsciously going, you know what? Something positive is ahead of the storm anyways. The sun is behind the storm anyways. Like, this is gonna make me stronger anyways. When I naturally start to feel like that in a moment where everything should be shitty, everything should be going bad for me, I have now recognized that I've changed my heart and my mind towards the subject of negativity. And that takes a lot of programming, because guess what? What do people naturally kind of gravitate to or go back to? They experience a shitty moment and all their world crumbles, all their belief system crumbles, all the optimism is no longer visible. Everything is just, it's just a darkness. It's just what they see with their own eyes. I believe is something, it's like, it's an invisible power that connects you to you know, God and certain words, you feel me? Like faith. What is faith? Faith is believing in the unknown. Once you remove faith, hope, and belief, you're removing actually all the strings that attach to existing and life coming forward. Faith is such a powerful concept. Hope is such a powerful concept. Like, you need to have those things as like rope around your hand, that no matter what's gonna happen, if this rope gets let go of, belief, faith, hope, if that rope gets let go of, you have nothing left. So you better make sure that rope is duct taped, gloved, I don't know, like cement put around your hand, that is the last thing that's ever leaving your consciousness. That's the last thing that's ever leaving whatever thing you're trying to achieve. That's the last thing you're gonna let go of, because that's the only thing in essence we actually have. Because nothing's promised, but the one thing that's promised is the unseen. My faith in what is promised, my belief system and what I believe is going to happen, my hope in a future, in a better thing. And no matter how bad it gets, no matter what storm I'm going through, as long as I have those principles embedded in my subconscious mind, where I don't need to no longer try to convince myself consciously, then I've won. I've won my own mind. I've won my own self over, because I have now conditioned myself to rely on those things, and those things are so powerful. One thing I'm gonna leave off with is, like, Dr. Miles Monroe said something so potent. He said, God is powerful. Don't get me wrong. Like, God can do whatever he wants at any moment, if you believe in God or not. But I'm using God right here. God is so powerful. Don't get me wrong. But he said, you know what's more powerful than God? Belief. Because you will have someone that don't believe in anything, and then you'll have someone that believes in something, and the key to God is belief. God is available all the time, but the key that everyone's missing is the faith and the belief, right? So actually, you disconnect yourself from that cord as soon as you are in unbelief, as soon as you don't believe. So the one thing that connects to God and power is belief. And then the Almighty, the most potent, the most powerful thing can happen. And the only one thing that connects to that power cord is the idea of belief, or believing, or faith, or hope. And once you understand that that is actually what connects to that invisible power cord, then that is what you must rely on in order to make sure that what's going to work for you is that you hold on to these invisible principles, morals, concepts, and ideas. Because if you don't have that, then you really don't have nothing to look forward to. You don't have a future. You don't have hope. Like, you don't have it. It's almost like God is like, hey man, just believe. He's like, well, God is like, hey, I can't even do anything for you because you don't believe. So you just disconnected me from you. So it's like, I'm potent. I know I can do something, but you just disconnected the opportunity for me to do something. So then I can't. I'm sorry. And a lot of people experience that, and they'll go, you know what? I knew it. You see? But if you check your mind, did you, and you check your heart, go back to your heart. Did you actually believe? And 9 times out of 10, person gonna be like, well, actually, really, I didn't really believe. That's why I didn't believe. Cause look what happened when I didn't bring my hopes up. Look what happens when I tried to believe. That's the word, try to. That means it really hasn't hit your heart. Because if you don't need to try if you really do believe, because you already believe. And that's the trick. And that's the trick of like going in depth of your mind. And there's so many things that you can feed yourself, and on a daily basis you need to. But because look how easily especially the social media and this phone, look how easily thoughts come in. Just go on the internet, just go on social media, boom, 1,000 thoughts coming in at you at once. Negative, positive, negative, crappy. Look at this, fear, hate. Guard your mind. Learn how to guard your mind. What if you kept only powerful thoughts for the whole day that you're awake, and you kept your mind sharp like that every day? But then you'll start to notice how easily your mind slips away because something else pulls your mind. But that's why it says guard your heart, because your mind can easily slip away, but where is your mind really at? My fault. Where's your heart really at? Because no matter if your mind's slipping away, your heart is really what's going to define what your mind is going to almost like restart to. Because my mind could get pulled this way, but where's my heart? Okay, my mind's like, oh, hold on, actually this is where the heart's at. So everything that's not compatible with this heart right now, anything that is not agreeing with this heart, y'all gotta move, because this heart it knows what it wants, and it shifts the mind. That's what's so potent about it. So this is a very powerful teaching, and you know, if you gotta listen to it a couple times, that's what it takes, and that's how you do it. Sometimes I listen to people a bunch of times because I heard something and I need to hear it again so it could really enter. You feel me? But a lot of people, it's like they just want, you know, the old saying, they just want their ears tickled. Your ears getting tickled is not going to shift anything in your reality. You gotta really want something. And that's the problem with you know, males today. They got everything so easily available, they don't really want it. That's why there's not a lot of competition.